Hey there! Welcome to Intro to Python Skills for AI, powered by Capital One. I'm Jacqueline, a software developer and coach here at Major League Hacking, and I can't wait to teach you a bit about Python. Now, I know what it's like to be totally new to software development, and know you might be nervous, but don't worry. In this series, we'll be starting with some of the very basics about how to use Python to develop applications. So, if you've never coded before, that is totally cool. Again, we'll be starting with the very basics, but by the end of the series, you'll have dipped your toes into web scraping and machine learning. Isn't that awesome? Now, this series is interactive and you'll be able to follow along with anything I'm developing and really get to grips with Python. To get the most out of this series, make sure you're developing with me. Don't just watch the videos. And of course, feel free to pause, rewind, or slow down these videos if you need a bit of extra time. I know I did when I was new to software development. Before we get started, there's a few organizations that I need to introduce you to. First up is Major League Hacking. We are the global hacker community, and it is our mission to empower hackers just like you. In the last year, over 135,000 hackers have created over 12,000 projects across 400 different cities, and we really hope you learned something awesome today. You can find more resources just like this one and attend one of our events at mlh.io. And finally, Capital One is dedicated to providing opportunities and resources that will enable more people to succeed. Through their Future Edge program, they're investing in and collaborating with leading educational and community organizations across the US to help more people succeed in the 21st century. They're empowering families through financial literacy and affordable housing, helping individuals bridge the digital skills gap, and showing small businesses how to harness technology to grow and compete. So, you've probably got a few questions, and one of them is probably, why does any of this matter? Well, I've got 3 reasons why it's worth learning Python. First up is coding is the new literacy. Now, in the past, you could say, well, I'm not really a computer person, and kind of get away with that, but in the 21st century, that's becoming less and less possible. Software development is becoming a key skill, no matter what sector, industry, or job you're working in. So at least knowing the basics is a really good way of staying ahead of the curve. Secondly, there are millions of careers where you can earn a lot of money and make a huge difference that use Python. Don't feel like it's just software development. If you want to be a data scientist or anything else, you totally can be using these skills. And finally, once you learn one programming language, you can learn any. The basics are very similar across all languages. So if you want to build a web app using JavaScript or create a plugin for a Minecraft server using Java, you're going to know the basics from Python, and it is totally transferable. So while there's going to be new challenges when learning those languages, you'll have a great start. So before we get started, I've got a question for you. If you've coded before, what languages have you used and what projects have you built? And if you're a first-time programmer, what are you hoping to learn from this series? Let me know in the comments down below, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So, that was a high-level overview of what to expect this series. But if that all sounded a bit confusing, don't worry. Over the next 3 episodes, we're going to be getting to grips with the very basics of Python. I'm talking about writing functions and how to use variables, that kind of thing. Now, first up, it might be an obvious question, but what is Python? And more specifically, what can you use Python for? Stop, think for a second, and see if you can answer this question for me. So that was kind of a trick question. Python can be used for a ton of different things. You can use it to make web pages or apps or scripts. And nowadays, one of the most common uses of Python is for artificial intelligence and machine learning. Now, as a bit of trivia, Python is a fairly old language. It was invented back in 1991 by Guido van Rossum, and the basics you're learning today are the building blocks for you to use in a machine learning or AI-based career. For example, Alexa and Siri use a type of AI called natural language processing to listen to and respond to words. And Capital One's Eno tool uses machine learning to help you manage your finances. But at the very core, they're just using the technologies we're going to talk about in this series. Now, it's time for a bit of terminology. If you've already programmed a bit before, you're probably going to be familiar with all of this, so feel free to skip past this section. But if you're a newbie, these are the main building blocks of any program you're going to build, so this is a section for you. The first thing we're going to learn about is variables. Now, variables are what we use to store information in while our program is running. There is multiple types of variables. So for example, I could store the words capital 1 in a variable. That's called a string, which is a collection of words or letters and other characters. Or the number 42, which would be an integer, although this gets a bit more complicated with very big or small numbers. So feel free to have a Google if you're interested in learning a bit more about that. But in short, if we're storing data in our program, no matter what type of variable it is, it's probably in a variable. Now, the best way to learn about programming isn't talking about it, it's doing it. And it is time to put your newfound knowledge about variables to the test. So during this course, instead of getting you to set up your entire local Python environment, which even those words alone sound a bit scary, we're going to use a great online tool called Glitch. Now, the great thing about Glitch is you don't have to download anything, it runs entirely in your browser, and it is a super simple way to write and run Python code. So head over to this link, and it'll take you to the Glitch homepage. Then click the big Join Glitch button and ask it to email you a magic link. Pop your email in there, it has to be your actual email because they're going to send you a code. Then, once you put it in and you've asked for them to send you a code, head over to your email inbox and you'll have been sent an email. There should be a super easy sign in button. So just press the sign in button and it should take you to the Glitch homepage and dashboard just like this, except this time you'll all be signed in. Once you get to this point, you are ready to go. So, once your Glitch account is all set up, it is time to start coding. Now, don't worry, we know that starting from a blank canvas can be a little bit daunting sometimes. We're not going to make you do that. Instead, head over to this link and press the remix button. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to create a copy of all of our code, and it's going to make it just for you. Now, the really cool thing about this is it means you can edit all the code, you can run it, you can do whatever you want with it, and it's not going to affect anybody else. Now, we're going to be using this code for the next 3 episodes. So make sure you have remixed it. And then once you get onto this screen, press the variables tab, since that's going to be the file we're going to be editing first. Okay, now it's time to actually start coding. So remember, a variable is just a place we can store some data. Now this might be an integer, which is a whole number, or it could be a string, which is just some text. There's other types as well, but we don't need to worry about them yet. So how do we create a variable? Well, first of all, we type the name of it. So I'm going to call my variable my age, because we're going to create a variable to store my age in. You can store your age in it. Now, you can call your variable anything you want, but there's a few caveats. So first of all, you've got to make sure you don't have any spaces in the variable name, because that'll just break it. That's what we use an underscore instead for. It's just we use it instead of a space and it keeps it readable. Now, you can call your variable anything, but one thing that's really important to do is make sure it's easy to understand what it is. So for example, don't just call your variable variable1 or my variable, because if you need to come back and edit your code, that's going to make your life really, really difficult. Okay, so now let's set it. So we're going to type equals, which is how we set a variable's value. And then I'm going to type in my age, which is 22 because I am old. You type in your age. Okay, so you see now we've got a variable called my age, and it's equal to whatever your age is. Now, on line 5, see if you can type a variable, which is your name and is set to whatever value you would like. Now, on line 4, you might see there's some text or a hash. What that is, it's a comment. Now, it's not going to do anything. All it is a note, so you or anyone else looking at your code can understand what's read. It's just a way of kind of clearing up what is being done in the code. So pause the video and see if you can create a variable which contains your name. Okay, did you manage? Well, here's what we do. I'm going to type in my underscore name as my variable name, but you could have called it anything as long as it didn't have a space in. And now I'm going to do a space equals, and now I'm going to set the value of the variable. Now, here's a little bit of a gotcha, and you might have fallen for this one, but if it's a string, which remember is text, we have to put our variable's value, which is your name, in quotes. So I'm going to put quotes and then type in Jacqueline. You'll have typed in your name. Now, the quote's just there because it's a string. And you'll notice in other parts of Python, strings are in quotes. It's just how we tell what they are. Okay, amazing. So we have written our program. It sets two variables, but how do we actually make it do something? So a really easy way of running a program is using a thing called a console. Now, if that sounds a bit scary and like we're about to enter the matrix, don't worry, we're not going to try and hack anyone or something. All a console is it's a place that lets us type commands or give an input and get an output. Now, Glitch has a console for us to use, but it can be a little bit difficult to find. So take a look. What we're going to do is we're going to go down to the Tools button at the bottom of your page, and then we're going to press the Terminal button. Now, Terminal is just the name of Glitch's console, so don't let that confuse you. Now, you'll see here we're editing a file called variables.py. You can see it in the sidebar. Now, py is just Python's file format, and the file's name is variables. So how do we actually run that file? Well, it's a Python file, so we're going to ask Python to run it. So we're going to type in Python, which is going to be the program that runs the file, and then we're going to type in variables.py, which is the name of the file. Then what we're going to do is press enter. And it's done absolutely nothing. So pause the video for a second. Why do you think that hasn't given us any output? Okay, let's see if you guessed it. The answer is because we've not asked our program to. And the thing about programming is it won't do anything that we don't ask it to do. It will do exactly what we ask it to do, which is sometimes very useful, but sometimes at first can be a little bit confusing. So let's make it so we can get an output. We're going to print to the console. And all that means is we're going to output something, some bit of data to the console. So on line 8, let's type in print, and then in brackets or parentheses, depending on where in the world you are, we're going to type in the name of the variable we want to print. In this case, let's print out my age. So remember, it's called my underscore age. That's the name of the variable. Now, how do you think we run that again? Yeah, it's as simple as typing in the console. Now, there's a really useful shortcut. We can just press the up arrow on our keyboard, and it will put in the command we typed last time back into our editor. So all we're going to do is press enter. And it's a super quick cheat, and it just makes life so much easier. And you'll have noticed this time we've got an output. We've got the number 22. Because that's my age. That's what I set for my age variable to. You should have got the number of whatever you set your age to. If you didn't, take a second, pause the video, rewind, and see if you made a typo. Sometimes it happens, and don't worry, that's a normal part of programming. Okay, so that's great and all, but we don't know what it is. It could be 22 dogs. It could be like I've eaten 22 cookies today. So how do we make that a little bit more useful? So what we can do is we can type print again, because, you know, that's still a command. And then in brackets or parentheses, we're going to type in a string. So remember, strings go in quotes. And we're going to say, hello, my name is, and I'm going to put a space. And what do you think will happen if we run this? Let's have a go. So all it's going to do is return, hello, my name is. Of course, it's also going to return my age again because that line of code is still there. But I want to say what my name is, right? And so what we can do is we can concatenate some strings. Now, that's a big long word, but don't worry. All it means is we're going to join the strings together. So after the quote, we can do add. And then, well, my name is stored in a variable called my underscore name. And then because I'm super excitable, let's do a plus, and after my name, let's put an exclamation mark in quotes. Okay, so if we run this now, you'll see it says hello. my name is Jacqueline. Now the really cool thing about this is it means that even if we edit my name up here, so say my name changed to, I don't know, Potato, if I run it again now, it'll say, hello, my name is Potato, which isn't a great name. So let's undo that and put my name back. But you'll see now it's as simple as that. And that is why we store data in variables, because it means if we change it in one place, anywhere that variable is used in our code, it is updated there too. Okay, now one final thing, and I'm gonna give you a heads up, this might confuse you a little bit. If it does, that's entirely normal and is totally fine. Coding can be a little bit confusing, and this is gonna be a slightly more fancier thing for slightly more advanced coders. But I wanted to show you it to you anyway, because sometimes it's good just to be aware of what a language can do. Now, a cool thing about Python is it supports something called templates and formatting and all of that fun stuff. So what we can do is we can actually do print, and then in parentheses or brackets, we can type in, hello, my name is, and then we're gonna put 2 curly brackets, and I am, curly brackets, years old, exclamation mark. What do you think is gonna happen when we run that code? Well, let's find out. I'm gonna run that code again, and you'll still see it says, hello, my name is curly brackets, and my name is curly brackets year old, and that is neither my name or my age, so that's not particularly useful. But actually, there's something really cool we can do. Now, you'll see here, this is all in just some quotes, so this is all just one string. And what we can do is we can do .format to format the string, and we can type in my underscore name, comma, my underscore age. The names are variables, and I accidentally deleted the closing bracket. That's super easy to do in programming, so make sure you always match your brackets. If there's 2 opening brackets on a line, you probably need 2 closing brackets as well. Otherwise, you'll get an error. Okay, so pause the video. What do you think this will do now? Well, let's have a go. And you'll see here it says, hello, my name is Jacqueline and I am 22 years old. Your program should have said your name and however old you are. All this is doing is it is formatting our string and replacing the curly brackets with whatever variable we set in whatever order we set them. So for example, the first curly brackets are replaced with the first kind of parameter here, which is just the name of something in a function, which we'll learn more about that soon, don't worry. So we're replacing this with your name, and then this one with the second value, which is your age. Super simple, right? And if that has confused you, don't worry. Remember, programming is a completely new learning experience for many people, so feel free to rewind, feel free to Google as well. It's not like a test. It is totally fine to Google when programming. As a little bit of a secret, everybody does it. Okay, one final thing before you can go and have a very well-deserved break. Now, remember how I said you could set variables? So for example, we can set the variable a to equal 12. That's a terrible variable name, but for the sake of example, it'll do the job. Well, if we then set a to equal, say, 14 on a line after it, or anywhere lower down the code, because code is read top to bottom, then that will modify the value of a. Now, let me show you an example of this. I'm gonna print, and I'm gonna say a is equal to, and then I'm gonna put curly brackets, because remember, we can then format these curly brackets by doing .format. And we're gonna say a is equal to whatever a is. Now, I'm then gonna go and put that here. I'm gonna copy paste it. I'm gonna say a is now equal to, and then whatever a is then equal to. Now, we've got all of this code up here still, and we don't really want it all to run. So a trick we can do is we can put a comment. Remember, that is a line that begins with a hash. And we can just put a comment at the start of each line. So that way, those lines won't get run. But if we want to run them again in the future, all we have to do is remove the comment. Okay, so now let's head down to our console and let's go and try python variables.py. Let's press enter, and you'll see that a is equal to 12, but a is now equal to 14. So you'll see it has been updated. If that's a bit confusing, don't worry, just have a play around and see if you can make it work. It's A little bit difficult to get your head around at first, but this is a really key part of programming. Okay, one final thing. So far, when we've set a value of our variables, we've done just that. We've set it to a value. For example, we set my age to equal 22 or A to equal 12. But actually, we can use math when assigning the value of our variable. So, for example, I can create a variable called b, and I can say b is equal to a times 2. And of course, I can print b to the console. So I can just copy paste this line of code, and I can say b is equal to, and of course we need to update our formatter, which is what sets the value of these curly brackets, so format b, so it will put the value of b there. What do you think this is equal to? Run the code yourself, and also before you do that, see if you can work it out. I'll tell you the answer at the start of the next episode, but if you're a bit confused, don't worry, all will be explained then. You've done really well. In this episode, we've done everything from learning about variables, but also getting up to speed on why Python is really important, and you've even run a program and got an output, so you should be really, really proud. Next episode, we're going to be taking a look at functions, something you've used but probably haven't realized it, and why they're really useful to make sure our code doesn't become an unreadable mess. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you next episode.